Hi, my name is Rachel, and I did my final paper on urbanization effects on Yupik culture. So basically, how the government and laws and regulations have affected Yupik cultural expression. And so my thesis statement was that the government does not allow the Yupik people enough rights to fully live their traditional cultural lifestyle, affecting their livelihood and cultural expression. Since the Yupik are native to Alaska, I feel like they should have as much rights as they probably possibly can to express their culture and preserve their culture. So, and these laws and regulations hinder that. So, one of the first things I went over is Yupik land rights. So, the ANCAS is the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act of 1971, and this separated, or not separated, but like kind of organized 12 corporations for Native Alaskans, and it garnered a lot of positive reviews because Native Alaskans had heavy involvement in this. And this is one of the first times that the government and Native populations really not communicated, but like did something together to like help them, help each other out, I guess. And so, but one of the main cause of this or arguments against this was that this was created more for an economic value, that these corporations were more for profitability and they were more to help Alaska and stuff like that. And so, these corporations did garner about 2.9 billion, and a lot of them went to scholarships and stuff like that, and helping each other out. But it kind of separated the goals of money and cultural preservation like between Native Alaskans, because throughout urbanizations and as the world progresses, people are leaving smaller towns, smaller villages, and going towards urban cities because of the market, profitability, money, stuff like that. And this is because of Western culture. Native Alaskans did not really weren't really ruled by money. This wasn't something that was native to their culture. So now they have to, are ruled by money. So it's separating their values really into culture preservation and money. And so the next topic I'm going to move on to is substance harvesting. So Alaska is known for their wildlife and hunting and fishing. That's a really big market for people to come to Alaska, is like hunting and fishing. So there's conflicting laws. There's legislative and government laws that dictate what time of day, like pinpoint what time of day that you can hunt this certain animal and how much you can hunt it and what size you can get. And this limits Yupik culture because that's one of their main like things is hunting and fishing and connecting, with animals and stuff like that. And so one of the ways Alaska kind of argues that this is okay is that they're trying to give everyone an equal opportunity, not just because you're native, you don't get special rights, which is kind of messed up because they should. And so the government fish and game kind of contradicts their whole main goal of preservation, because that's Yupik's main goal is preservation. They use every part of the animal. They really respect the animal. The parts they don't use, they give back to the earth. It's not about like how much I can catch and how much I can sell. It's like it's just a way of life for them. And so it doesn't only contradict, the main goal of fish and game, but it also contradicts Yupik's cultural values. And so the government limits their cultural, expression by limiting their substance harvesting. Next is gender roles. So women and men are affected differently by urbanization because there's a market for women's, basket weaving, stuff like that. So you see more women moving from rural village, Yupik villages to like Anchorage because there's a market for their, historical culture, basket weaving, stuff like that. And so there's a market for that. So they can live off that. They can make money off that. While men can't really like pursue their cultural like hunting and stuff like that in big cities because there's less like animals, there's less wildlife for one. And then on top of that, there's stricter laws and regulations for that. And, social status is really like intertwined with how well you can like pursue your gender roles. And so men can't really do this. And this is affected because of urbanization. And so men tend to like stay in the villages while women move to larger cities because they can profit off their traditional gender roles. So let me see, language preservation and education. So you know, Native Alaskan Yupik languages, they are dying languages because there's less of them and there's more, people speaking English in Alaska. And so historically, Westerners had made bilingual Native Alaskans because they basically kidnapped kids and took them into like religious schools and stripped away their culture and stuff like that and forced them to speak English. And natives culture is an oral language. Like they pass down their knowledge orally. They don't really write stuff down. They do have art and stuff like that, but it's very heavy oral language. Like storytelling, how people learn, how they learn about history is through, talking. And so it's really up to the elders to pass down their knowledge and the younger generation's willingness. And this is harder when, more people are moving to bigger cities. So the government has limited this by not, well, I guess in the beginning, stripping away their culture for one and not as heavily pursuing languages. I mean, now they offer, at UAF, for example, they offer native languages like to teach, but it's more difficult with, kids moving to farther away from their villages and stuff like that. So the government has limited that. And the next topic is preservation and sustainability. So natives are very connected to the environment. Their whole culture is basically centered around environment and respecting animals spiritually and stuff like that. And so it's not rare, and this is a common problem that, Yupik people face is these non-locals, these government officials come into their villages, jot down like environmental changes, then in turn blame it on the Yupik or tell the Yupik they don't know what they're talking about. And so the Yupik notice changes in their environment way before government officials do. It's like, for example, American Fisheries and Societies reported that this is not Yupik, but Aleuts, anonymous behavior of seabirds and sea animals, and they jotted it down 15 years after the Aleuts noticed it. It's just like really slow on noticing changes, like in environmental changes, and then they usually blame the Yupik by saying that they're the cause of the decline in animal population, but it's usually not the case. Or they tell them that they cannot hunt anymore, or they can't hunt this specific animal because the changes or the decline in population. That limits their culture because fishing, hunting is one of the main things that they need. Like subsistence harvesting is one of the main like cultural, things they want to do. So not only does the government come into these villages and make these changes and tell them that it's their fault and tell them they can't fish or hunt anymore, but they don't really listen to them, and they don't listen to what they have to say about the changes in the environment, why they think there is a change. And that's a big issue because they know a lot more about the environment than we will ever. They're way more connected to the environment than we are. And so, in conclusion, the Alaskan government affects Yupik culture expression. It divides the goals of natives between profitability and culture preservation. So, money, cultural preservation, limits substance harvesting by their laws and regulations, limits traditional gender roles by having a market for women and not having a market for men, limits language usage by the impending Western culture, and ignores natives' views and opinions on environmental changes. So, in conclusion, I don't think Alaska does a great job with providing the native population, especially Yupik, with all the rights they need to fully express and pursue their culture. It is a dying culture, and they are trying their best to keep it going. And it's difficult when there's constantly these laws and regulations with people who don't fully understand their culture are constantly limiting it. So, in conclusion, that's how I have to say. These are my references. And one of the main reasons I chose Yupik culture is because simply where they were on the map. I like that they were a coastal region and that they were away from like big cities like Fairbanks and Anchorage. Thank you, and that is my report.